Hello friends, welcome to my channel. I am JCM Byrne, author of Blissful Ascending, ta-da, and this is Book Burning, a show where I'm going to talk about books and things that I like about books, and I promise to never ever actually burn a book. Today I've got a couple things I wanted to talk about, get off my chest. We're going to talk a little bit about cosplay. We're going to mention J.K. Rowling, and we're going to talk about why you should or should not write to market. And then we're going to talk about why you and I might already be friends, even if you didn't know it. So that's what I have in store. Let's see how it goes. All right, let's start with the cosplay point. I promise I'm going to get somewhere with this. I used to go to a lot of anime conventions, Otakon, which is a fantastic name for a convention. I wish I'd come up with it myself. Of course I didn't. It was big in Baltimore, and I think it's in DC now. I went for 10 years. And I was never into the cosplay scene myself. I was a big anime fan from before they were even being translated into English. But I never got into cosplay more because I was lazy than anything else. But I noticed a lot of cosplay and I was around it. And what I found is if you go to one of these conventions, Comic-Con I'm sure is very similar, people get so excited when they see someone else cosplaying in their favorite character. They run up, they give them hugs, they take their photo. People love it. And on some level, I'm sure it's an appreciation of the craft. Someone does a costume, they do a great job, the costume looks good, they match the character well, that's lovely. But it's deeper than that, and you can tell by watching the interactions it's deeper than that. People would see someone else wearing Vash the Stampede. That was a big thing when I first started going to Otakon from Trigun. And they would know that this other person had spent hours sewing, getting things together, crafting a big gun out of foam or whatever they use, I don't know. And they knew that someone doing that had to have done it from a tremendous love of the anime and of that character. And that love connects people, it binds people. If you like the same sort of fiction I like, that is a connection that we have between us. It creates an instant relationship. In a way that you see in all sorts of things. You watch two people who like comics. I said, what do you like? Oh, you like DC? I'm more of a Marvel guy. Okay, bye. Oh, you like Marvel too? You like an X-Men guy? You're a Daredevil person? What do you like? People bond over this sort of thing, and it's a real connection because, in some sense, what you love says something about your values, at least your aesthetic values. I don't want to go too far, overstate things, but it says something about the kind of things you like. And when someone else likes the same sorts of things, you are, like I said, instantly connected. So people would go to these conventions, see someone dressed as their favorite character, and just bond with them and talk to them and have this relationship. And it doesn't have to be good. You could sometimes see that some of the more popular cosplayers are people who just put effort in, and you could tell there was a tradition of older, chubby men dressed up as Sailor Moon. They didn't look good, okay? They didn't look like Sailor Moon characters. If I put on a skirt and a schoolgirl outfit, I wouldn't look like I belonged in a Sailor Moon cartoon. It's not going to work physiologically. But it's the effort, it's the demonstration of that affection for the character. Okay, what does this have to do with writing? I promised I was going to get there, and I am. The thing about writing is, with writing, there's usually one of the more primitive reasons people write is they write the kind of things they like. Think about the most primitive types of fiction that people write. What do people start with? I'm not talking about professional writers who have been at it for a very long time. Think more of what kind of fiction do people write when they're in high school on their own, if they're doing it? Sure, people write poetry, but if they're writing fiction, it often starts with something like fanfic. Well, what is fanfic? You don't write fanfic for a property you don't love. You write fanfic because you want to see something happen in a property you care about. You want to see a relationship develop, you want to see some blend. When I was 9, I wrote stories about Conan the Cimmerian getting a lightsaber and carving a sizzling swath through Hyperborea. It wasn't because I thought that'd make a good story. I was 9, I had no idea. It seemed cool. I loved that idea, and that's why I wrote it. And I think we presume that authors, are doing something very similar. They're writing because they love what they're writing. They're writing the story that they want to read. So what does that mean? That means that when you see a writer whose story you love, you have a bond. Just like with someone cosplaying a character you love, you have a bond. And I realized this, I think, I owe it to H.C. Newton. So he runs a blog called The irresponsiblereader.com. Wonderful blog, does great book reviews, often of books I don't care about, but I'll read every review he writes. And he reviewed Wistful Ascending. Very kind, very generous, and very kind review. And he wrote this, and I got to put on the reading glasses because I'm an old man now. He quoted himself as saying, "It's working great," meaning the book. "I'm loving it. I want to become his new best friend," meaning me. And when I first read this, my reaction wasn't, "That's weird. He doesn't know anything about me. He just knows the book I read." My first reaction instead was, "Of course, that makes perfect sense. And if you love my book, I want to be your new best friend too." Because because Wistful Ascending is the thing I love. I wrote the book I loved, right? I'm not saying, let me backtrack a moment. I'm not saying it was necessarily good. I was trying to write something I would love. I put the elements of things in fiction that I love into the book. So of course, if someone else sees those things and loves them too, we have a bond the same way you might bond with someone who's dressed up as Rurouni Kenshin at a convention. You love the character, they love it's the same thing. Except in this case, it's my book, but it's the book that I loved. I wrote it out of wanting to express certain things that I care about in fiction. I put them in the book. And if H.C. Newton likes those same sort of things, we're friends. Even though we've never been probably within 1,000 miles of each other, and we've certainly never met. We've never had even a phone conversation, but we're friends. And that's true of anyone, at least of anyone who has really enjoyed my books. And if you think about this, if you understand that this is a valid way people connect, and it's a valid way people bond, it helps you understand other things that happen in the sort of the book community. And I brought up J.K. Rowling because I think she's a really interesting example. You know, whether you agree with her politics or her view on trans people, whether you agree with it or not, she has certainly taken a very firm stance on being a TERF, on the validity of someone being trans, and how trans women fit into the feminist movement and feminist ideology. She's made very strong statements about that. But it's easy to see if someone feels very strongly different. Well, why do they care if she has a position so different from them? She's not the only TERF in England, right? But people felt, because they loved Harry Potter so much, people felt like J.K. Rowling was their friend. She's not just a creator of content that they enjoyed, right? If the person who makes your breakfast cereal, turns out to have politics very different from yours, you're not going to feel that same level of betrayal. But people felt, even though they never met her, that J.K. Rowling was their friend because she created this property that they loved so much, and they assumed, probably truthfully, that she loved it too. They felt a connection, and they felt betrayed when her politics were different, so different from theirs in ways they found meaningful. Okay? So you can understand why people are because people are really mad at J.K. Rowling, and you can make sense. Okay? So we talked about cosplay, we've talked about the relationship between the okay. Now, I promised I would talk, the title of this video, if I end up using this title, I haven't actually done the title card yet, is Don't Write to Market. And here's the thing. If you are a writer, or if someone who's a writer, if a writer is in the business of trying to write and make a living off writing, one of the things that is often suggested is write to market. And if you're not familiar, it's a very simple idea. Try to write the sorts of things people like to read, because that way you'll sell more books, right? As opposed to writing something no one wants to read, which is not a good way to sell or market your books. If you want to make money writing, write to market. And I know someone who has described her process to doing this in a lovely way on a forum that I really appreciate. And she'll literally go through the bestsellers in her genre, which I believe is romance. Don't quote me on the details. She'll look through the elements, the types of things that happen in the top-selling books in her genre, and she will make sure to include those in her next book. So her book will have whatever's hot. If vampire squid romance is the big thing this month, her next book will have a vampire squid romance. And I'm exaggerating, and maybe I shouldn't be. I don't mean to put her down. And since she started doing this, since she started deliberately inserting the tropes from the bestsellers or tropes that her newsletter responders said that they wanted. She would do polls, things like that. She would include the elements people described as desirable, deliberately use that to create the next book, release the next book, and her sales jumped. She made a lot more money. And I have a ton of respect for that. It's a business. She's treating it as a business. She's running her business correctly. I understand. But, there's always a but, there's something you lose when you do that. And that's what I want to bring up. That what you lose that she's not writing the things she loves most. She's dissociating a step. She's writing the things she thinks her readers love most. And that bond is never going to be as true as it would have been had she been releasing her own stuff that was just what she loved. Okay? She's probably selling more books, and that's fine. If that's a trade-off you're willing to make, I have no objection. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's immoral. I'm not saying you should not do it. But I do think you should know that that's what's happening. Let me give you a little thought experiment to try to hammer in the point I'm trying to make. Imagine you see your favorite author of books that you just love, and you see them in a place like a bar or having dinner by themselves, or any kind of public place where they seem approachable. I bet you would really want to sit next to them. Oh, I love your stuff. Oh, how you doing? Big fan. Shake their hand. Maybe get an autograph. Buy them a drink. Whatever. Have a short conversation if possible. I bet if you had a chance to eat a meal with them, you would jump at that chance. Why? Again, because I think you imagine this person is kind of like your friend already. They wrote this thing you love. Presumably, they love it too. Now imagine as you're walking up behind them, and you hear them on the phone with their agent. I'm holding a phone like this because I'm so old that in my mind, this is how phones are shaped, because that's how I grew up. This is not how phones are shaped today, but you get the idea. They're on the phone with this first slab, with their agent, and they're saying, yeah, I know, I gotta get the next book to you, but I hate this crap. It just, the people eat it up, but I just can't stand writing another story like this. But I promise I'll chunk it out and I'll work hard. I'll get it to you on Monday, okay? Yeah, I need to have like another couple whiskeys because I hate every second I spend writing these characters. They click. Imagine you're walking up, you hear that conversation. Do you still feel the same way about that writer? You think you'd still want to like have dinner with them? If you find out that their creation, their characters, their stories that you love so much aren't from their heart, they're from a marketing perspective, they're trying to sell books and they don't like it very much. You might still be okay reading the books, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be. If you enjoy the books, that's fantastic. I'm not saying you should turn against that writer, harass them. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. But I think you would feel less close to them as a person. You wouldn't necessarily want to share a dinner with them. You wouldn't want to buy them a drink. You would want to walk back and say, I'm just going to keep reading those books and pretend I never heard that. So when you write to market, when you adjust what you're writing, and again, this all is going to allow of degrees, okay? If you make a little twist because you think your audience will appreciate it more, that's fine, right? That's not really changing what you're doing. But if you're really writing for a market, if that's your whole purpose, I don't like vampire romances, but I'm going to write one because I know I can make money doing that. You are losing out on a chance to really connect with that audience. And again, if you're okay with that, I'm not saying it's immoral, but I am saying you're losing out. And you need to recognize that when you write. If you write to market, if you adjust, especially if you're writing entirely to market, if your entire conception is what will sell, you are losing on a chance to have a genuine bond with your readers. And to me, I don't sell as many books as I'd like to. I don't mean to complain, but I feel a tremendous connection to the people who love my books because we love the same thing. Again, my books, whether you like them or not, whether you think they're well done or not, they have the elements of fiction that I love in them, whether it's done well or not. That's the kind of thing I love. Anyone who appreciates those books, gives them 5 stars, 4 stars, whatever, we have a friendship. We're already friends. So if you're watching this and you've read Blissful Ascending, see, I came prepared. Turn of the Griffin, right? Or the latest release, Blood Reunion. If you've read any of these or all of them and you love them and you appreciate them halfway as much as I do, because I love them, we're already friends. And that's what I gain by not writing to market. And what I lose is I don't know how many sales. I don't know what I would be getting in sales if I'd written something more commercial. We'll never know. So I'll never be too sad about it. So now, let me just a couple caveats because I have to put caveats on it's how my brain works. One, if you don't like my books and you don't like the same fiction I like, that doesn't mean we can't be friends. That just means that can't be the source of our friendship. My wife doesn't like the same kind of books I do. We get along pretty okay. We're married. There are all kinds of different things that can be the foundation for a bond between human beings. That doesn't have to be it. So if you don't like my books, it doesn't mean we're enemies. It just means that's not the foundation of our relationship. That's fine. The other thing is, I hope people understand that if you do write to market and you're successful, that's fantastic. But if you write to market for a while and you're still not making any money, and you've given it a try, and you're trying to hit the tropes, and you're doing the marketing stuff, and you've followed all the rules, and you're still not making a meaningful amount of money, then let me suggest that you stop doing that and just write the thing that you really want to read next. And if you're not going to make any money, at least don't make money in a way that will make you satisfied and that will bring you closer to your audience. And I don't want to discourage anybody. That's just my opinion. That's my advice. Because if you write what you love and you don't make any money, you still have things you love out there that represent who you really are. And you're going to find an audience of the people who love the same sorts of things. And it may not be a big enough audience to make you rich. But if you weren't getting rich before, you haven't lost that. So that's it's a long video. I don't think that's 2 cents worth. I think, the inflation, it might be a nickel or even a dime's worth of what I have to say. But that's what I have to say today. I think I've tied in all my loose ends. I hope. We'll see. I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope it brought you some understanding. Feel free to disagree in comments. I feel like I should tell you what to do on YouTube if you enjoyed it. There's steps you ought to be taking, but I'm going to guess you already know what those are. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm JCM Berne. Again, buy my books. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. So long.